Hey everyone. Today, chapter 23, blood vessels and circulation. So this is the last part of the cardiovascular system. We'll focus first on blood vessels and histology. So all the tissue level stuff going on with blood vessels. In the coming videos, we'll be talking about names of actual blood vessels, gross anatomy, and where they're found in the body, how they're connected to each other, and the pathway that blood takes through your body. So that can get pretty complicated. So we'll be breaking this down into small videos. So here we're going to identify the different layers of blood vessels, what the difference is between arteries and veins, not just that one is towards the heart and one's away from the heart, but also the composition of the layers. We'll also look at the different types of capillaries, because there's more than one type of capillary, and we'll also understand how atherosclerosis affects blood supply to the heart. When I envision blood flowing through our bodies, it's kind of like traffic on a road. I know I have pictured here some futuristic vision of traffic, but well, I guess a futuristic vision of traffic as represented by blood cells. You can see what are represented as red blood cells going through. You can get off at the adrenal glands or to the liver or to the lung. There are lots of exits. Just like with a regular highway, one with cars, you can get off of the highway onto a smaller street. You can get onto the highway onto a bigger thing. You can go off to residential roads, which are much smaller. There are different roads to meet different needs. Large highways are needed for traveling long distances quickly, while residential roads are to get to very, very specific targeted places. We need erythrocytes, for instance, to get on a major highway, get on a major blood vessel, to go a farther distance in your body, but then it needs to get off onto a smaller capillary in order to give oxygen to different targeted parts of your body. So we'll see how that all applies as we go through this chapter and the coming chapters. We've mentioned this before. The cardiovascular system, blood vessels, what make up the cardiovascular system, it forms a closed loop. Everything inside of blood vessels, let me back up. Most things inside of blood vessels, so blood as a whole, should stay within blood vessels. There is leakage of liquid, you get exchange of gases and nutrients and waste, that does happen, yes. But on the whole, you shouldn't be losing blood. If you do, that means you have a damaged blood vessel. There's a closed loop. The main difference between arteries, capillaries, and veins is that arteries carry blood away from the heart. So functionally, that's the difference. They carry blood away from the heart. We saw the aorta, the pulmonary trunk. Those are major arteries, and there's more. A key feature of arteries is that they have very thick elastic walls. Because arteries are carrying blood away from the heart just squeezed, and now you have high pressure blood exiting to the arteries. That high pressure blood is going to cause the blood vessel to expand. There's a lot of pressure on them. So not only do we want to expand, but we also want it to go back to its original size. It's going to, just like a snap back like a rubber band, it's going to be elastic and then push back. The term for this that we can give to this, that it's snapping back and pushing blood forward, it serves as a pressure reservoir. Reservoir means to hold on to something. Like if you have a reservoir of water, it's just like a big pond of water. Here we're holding on to pressure. As blood is pushing onto the walls of the artery, it then snaps back and keeps pushing blood forward. There's also smooth muscle in arteries that helps redirect blood flow. Like let's say there's too much traffic on a road. If you want to eliminate traffic, we put up cones, reduce the number of lanes, or block it off completely. We can do that with arteries, and we'll learn this other special type of artery where we can change the size of arteries using smooth muscle. We can vasoconstrict and vasodilate. Capillaries are the tiniest blood vessels. They allow for gas exchange, for nutrient exchange, for waste exchange with tissues. They do not really have any layers. They just have one layer. The one layer is simple squamous epithelium. And by having simple squamous, the super thin, so if I should draw in a circle, super thin cells, you can easily get substances in or out of that blood vessel. There's efficient diffusion. That's represented here. So you get blood flowing this way. You get exchange at the capillaries. Finally, veins carry blood back to the heart. At this point, blood has low levels of nutrients, high levels of wastes. So we want to return it to the heart, and then from the heart, send it to the lungs to reoxygenate our blood. Veins carry blood to the heart. They have a much larger lumen on the whole. If you compare in this histology picture at the bottom, here's a vein. You can see that it's overall much bigger than the artery, which I'm coloring in green. The artery has a thicker wall, has those thick elastic walls and smooth muscle, while a vein doesn't have as thick a wall, doesn't have as much elastic tissue or smooth muscle. What it does have is a large lumen. By having a large lumen, you can hold lots of blood. You want to return as much blood as you can back to the heart. It serves as a volume reservoir. It's not holding on to pressure, it's holding on to volume. So we'll be comparing the differences in layers between arteries and veins. They overall have the same layers, but you can clearly see that there's differences in thickness. And those differences in thickness, differences in composition dictate their functions. Most blood vessels, besides capillaries, have 3 layers. The innermost layer, the internal layer, is tunica intima. Tunica intima. Pictured in this histology here on the left side, top left, it's zoomed in. What we're looking at is, if you can imagine a blood vessel, attempting to draw the full blood vessel with all of its layers. Then one more. Okay. What I have there in green is representing tunica intima, and what we're looking at is just a slice of this whole blood vessel. So what I've put in a rectangle there, that's what we're looking at here. We're just looking at a slice of this whole blood vessel. So the lumen is over here. The lumen is over here. Tunica intima is flattened endothelium. The word endothelium, we've learned about epithelium, and epithelium is what covers surfaces, whether it's skin or tracts. Blood vessels, while they do have a lumen, are not exposed to the outside. So that's why we call it endothelium. It's on the inside. Endothelium, in this case, is simple squamous epithelium. So we have simple squamous epithelium. If you take a look again at the top left histology, we have simple squamous epithelium lining all along here in tunica intima. And there's also a very thin layer of areolar connective tissue. Just deep to it. We've always learned that whenever you have some kind of epithelium, you always have at least some areolar connective tissue deep to it. That's tunica intima. You always have that simple squamous there as a barrier. Tunica media is the middle layer. Media means middle. What you find here is smooth muscle and elastic connective tissue. both of those, smooth muscle and elastic connective tissue. You have smooth muscle here in this layer. So like a single cell, I'm going to draw it in black. You can see the long nuclei here. A single cell would be approximately that big, probably thinner than what I've drawn. And then you also have intermixed the squiggly elastic fibers. Smooth muscle is so that you can vasoconstrict and vasodilate. Vasoconstrict to reduce blood flow, vasodilate to increase blood flow. And then the elastic connective tissue is to expand, because blood vessels, the more blood volume they get, the more they need to expand. The outermost layer, is called tunica externa. It's the external layer. You'll also see it called adventitia. It's the same thing. So I think it'll be helpful for you to know both. Tunica externa, outer layer, or adventitia. This is made of dense, irregular connective tissue. You can see the collagen fibers here. Let me label this other stuff. Simple squamous in the tunica intima, areolar connective tissue, also in tunica intima, elastic fibers and smooth muscle in tunica media, collagen of dense irregular in tunica externa or adventitia. So a lot of different tissues making up a blood vessel. The dense irregular is there as just a barrier, as a support. It kind of reinforces the blood vessel. And blood vessels, you know, we can massage and move around our body a lot. Blood vessels can be pressed upon and be completely fine. Cutting is not good for blood vessels, but contact and pressure is generally okay. And that's in large part because of the dense irregular connective tissue reinforcing the outside of it. So let's talk about arteries first. We can divide up arteries into 3 categories. All of them, what's true about arteries is that they carry blood away from the heart. So functionally, what makes an artery is that it carries blood away from the heart. We can divide up arteries into 3 structural categories. The first structural category is that elastic arteries, they're called elastic arteries. Elastic arteries have a lot of elastic connective tissue. They're the largest of the arteries. And by being really large and having lots of elastic connective tissue, they can tolerate high pressure changes. Take a look at the histology over here on the right, top right. Tunica media is what I'm bracketing right now. And here you can see all the smooth muscle and elastic tissue. Bordering the edges of tunica media, you have an internal elastic membrane, which I'm tracing now in a squiggly green line. So it's in between the border of tunica intima and tunica media. That's the internal elastic membrane. And then you have an external elastic membrane. That's the border between tunica media and adventitia. This is a very apparent thing for elastic arteries, to see these 2 distinct borders of the tunica media. And that just emphasizes how much elastic fibers there are in tunica media, in addition to smooth muscle. Examples of elastic arteries include the aorta, that largest artery coming out of the heart, the pulmonary trunk, which is the main artery coming out of the heart towards the lungs from the right ventricle. And we'll learn about the brachiocephalic trunk. It goes up to the right side of your body. We'll get to that soon. Another important feature that you can see in the adventitia in the tunica externa is that This large blood vessel has blood vessels in it, has smaller blood vessels found in tunica externa. Blood vessels within blood vessels, the way to say that in Latin is vasa vasorum. Vas or vasa means blood vessel or vessel. So vasa vasorum means vessel in a vessel. You can see that in the histology over here, bottom right, you can see a blood vessel in tunica externa. So those are elastic arteries, the largest ones, lots of elastic connective tissue. The next type of structural category of arteries are muscular arteries. Muscular arteries are the medium-sized ones. Now, it's not to say that elastic arteries don't have smooth muscle, they do, or that muscular arteries don't have elastic connective tissue, they do. It's just that based on their proportions, their tunica media is pretty large. So if you take a look at this histology on the top right, you can see a very, very thin tunica intima. You can see a very thick tunica media, and then relatively not that big externa. So muscular arteries aren't bigger than elastic arteries, but proportionately, tunica media is larger than tunica externa. So it's muscular. Muscular arteries, the smooth muscle in tunica media, it can change size. How it changes size, it's under autonomic control, specifically the sympathetic nervous system. There is no parasympathetic innervation for blood vessel control. Unlike, say, the stomach. The stomach is both under sympathetic and parasympathetic, or the heart is under both sympathetic and parasympathetic. It also has internal and external elastic membranes, like what we saw for the elastic arteries that forms the border of tunica media. I've listed some examples of muscular arteries. Basically, every other artery that we name is going to be a muscular artery. Just major arteries leading to your head, to your arms, to your legs. So use this as a reference later, but most of the arteries that we name are going to be muscular arteries. The third structural type of artery is an arteriole. At this point, we've gone from large elastic arteries, we've branched to smaller muscular arteries, and now we're branching to even smaller arterioles. Arteriole means small artery. So arterioles are the smallest arteries. You're still sending blood away from the heart. We haven't gotten to capillaries yet. Because of their size, because they're so small, they can most effectively control blood flow between arteries and capillaries. If you look at this histology over here at the top right, you can see the border of a muscular artery right here, and it's barely shown on this page. So that's a muscular artery that I've drawn here in green. The arteriole, which I'm coloring in red, is this, super small. That's an arteriole. At the bottom, this is not to scale. It's showing the layer differences between elastic arteries, muscular arteries, and arterioles. Obviously, arterioles are way smaller, but we're blowing it up so you can see the difference. What you can see is that there is a tunica media. It's not that thick. It's like 2 to 3 cell layers thick. Not much of a tunica externa. Every blood vessel has to have a tunica intima, so that's there. Yeah, so it's just a small blood vessel. You can see the smooth muscle here in the histology, and it changes size and redirects where blood can go. If you want blood to flow more to your muscles and less to your digestive system, you can do that. If you want more blood to flow to your digestive system, less to your muscles, you can do that. Your body automatically controls that using your sympathetic nervous system. Those are the 3 different types of arteries. In the next video, we'll go over the different types of capillaries. In the 3rd video, we'll go over different types of veins and cardiovascular conditions. So I'll see you in the next video. Please let me know if you have any questions. Talk to you soon.